My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to the AstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Welcome to the AstroHistorian Live, where today we're going to be discussing the new lore being introduced in Star Citizen 4.1. In-game lore, mind you. Welcome. My name is Paul. This is the AstroHistorian. I am your professor. This is a live stream, not a video. And I know I'm going to get people commenting after this is done. Paul, I don't have time to watch 4 hours. Give me a video that's like 30 minutes, and someone's going to complain about the length of it. And if you see that in the comments below after this is live, just respond to them, sir, this is a whammers, just so they know. Okay? Sorry about that. Alrighty, welcome everyone. Today is an interesting one because typically what I do these live streams, I'm trying to do them twice a month now. So I'll try to do them, there's no specific time frame, but I will, in the future, I'll do my best to sort of give at least a couple days heads up that we're going to be doing these live streams, but they're always going to be on Mondays. And they'll be for at least 2 hours. I tried to shoot for around 2 hours because 2 hours is a good slot. I usually end up running out of material by the first hour and a half, and then we do sort of question and answers. So if you have questions about the lore of Star Citizen, feel free to let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. The one thing I will say, and I should probably start saying before the beginning of every one of these videos, is that Star Citizen is a game in development. And so there are some things which just aren't established yet. And while CIG does endeavor to sort of explain everything they can in the game, not every aspect of the game is going to be explained in lore. And a great example of that is regen. While regen has a lot of like in-lore explanations, the game as it stands right now is not the final version of how regen will work in the game and how it works in the lore. So I've been seeing a lot of people say, well, the NERSA commercial is right now. So the NERSA commercial was just somehow was telling us the truth in the future. It's not even the case. Because we know how tier 0 is, but versus tier 1, it's completely different. And tier 2 is different from that. And those are more quickly aligned to the lore of what CIG has set forward thus far. But they could change because it's a game in development, so things do change. Am I blurry and laggy for you? I shouldn't be. Refresh your stream if you're seeing that. How you doing, Luna? Welcome, Von Hofstadt. NGH, Gyrating, The Corpse, Santane. The Butthole, Chris Alexander, Red Marine, Lucy, Spike, how y'all doing? So, here's how this is going to work. I'm going to go through and read some of the information that we know about specifically from in-game. So this is all pulled from sources in-game so that we can kind of get an idea of, you can get an idea of what's going on. So I'm going to start up with the lore of the different factions. There are 4 major factions that were added in this. I'm going to save the most exciting one for last because this is the one that everyone's been waiting for. The first one is the Foxwell Enforcement. So, Foxwell Enforcement was founded by retired police officers in Low in the Corel system, probably a New Junction. To give you context, Low in the Corel system is a hotbed of crime and criminal activity. Corel is the gateway to the Banu for humanity. So it has a lot of smuggling, it has a lot of piracy. To give you more context, the Hawk, the Anvil Hawk, was specifically designed and built to deal with piracy in the Corel system. I kid you not. It is designed specifically to deal with the Corel system. That shows you how wild it is. The Cousin Crow, the person who created Cousin Crows, his nickname is Cousin Crow because that was his name in prison. But he was he's from that system and specifically created was sold was sold into slavery to the Banu, and it worked in a Suli as a kind of a chop shop shoot Suli. So he got good at like carving up ships. He also got good at building custom ships specifically for smuggling while he was in that Suli. So it's sort of like a chop shop / ship customization Suli, which we'll go back to Sulis here in a moment. Let's see. So Foxwell comes from a place where it's very dangerous to live. It's very rough to live. And it is very frequently in the crosshairs of crime. So Foxwell was designed to be a private security company for security services, for police officers, made of former police officers. Foxwell Enforcement provides low-cost security consultancy to those who need it most. The company hoped this altruism would lead to financial reward, but instead they've been forced to cut corners and loosen hiring practices to survive. Many companies still hire Foxwell because they're affordable, but their low wages make it hard to retain skilled security contractors. So Foxwell started off as sort of police officers for police officers. So they wanted to keep their services cheap and affordable, and they hoped that by being cheap and affordable, and because they had a bunch of experienced police force, law enforcement officers, that they would get more bids from law enforcement and other sort of security services who needed expert law enforcement officers for a discount price. So they would get a ton of cheap contracts so they would stay in business, but they didn't do that. So they ended up having to just cut corners, and so now they're the discount rent-a-cops. They're the Wish version of the Pinkertons. They're the Wish version of what's the security company? It's the two crossed swords as their symbol. The security company for Arc Corp. I always forget their name. Blackjack. Thank you, Piss Poor Pete. So they're basically the discount Blackjack or the discount. I always forget all these security company names. They're a budget version of that. There's the it's like North Star, I want to say North Rock. They're discount North Rock. Discount Blackjack or discount North Rock. Blackjack is heavily influenced and inspired by BlackRock. That's kind of their modeling because CIG's bad at names. Okay, you sold me on Pinkerton from Wish. I will work so hard for them. They're Wish.com security, yeah. So they're added to the verse, and their missions specifically revolve around the old Hathor stations, which we'll talk about here in a moment, because Hathor is an important company to understand because they're becoming a big factor in Stanton. Then we've got High Point Wilderness Specialists. After watching precious ecosystems in their home planet of Noble deteriorate due to invasive animals, Larkin Bowden became inspired by the Fair Chance Act and environmental movement of the late 28th century to do something about it. In 2795, they founded High Point Wilderness Specialists with the goal of preserving the natural beauty of the UEE through wildlife control. Initially, the company specialized in the removal of invasive species and population control. They have since expanded into animal handling and leading expeditions to view wildlife in their natural habitats. So they're sort of a for-profit park ranger services. They're sort of safari guides mixed with park wilderness management services. So they cull large populations, they remove invasive species, which is a problem. There are many invasive species in the UEE. The Ranta seems to be one of them. The stonebug seems to be another. But probably the most infamous is the blind oni crab, or the xyphopod. And of course, the everyone's favorite, the Valakar, the sandworm. So High Point is in game now with 4.1, and their missions revolve around the removal of Copian and Marok. So they ask you to go hunt and kill specific groups. All right. The next group is called Rayari Incorporated. Now, Rayari is a pretty famous group. Most of you have probably heard of them or seen their symbol or the logos all over the verse. They're pretty big. And to give the context for them, the briefest of context, because I've got to do an entire standalone video just on Rayari because they're that important. I do want them to release the Boreal Stalker before, because they have a key in the creation of the Boreal Stalker. But the briefest of explanations is that Rayari was founded by 3 scientists who were part of the inspiration for the revolution against the Mezers. Let me remember what the actual planet is called. I'm always bad about that. The planet. Star Citizen Tide. The Massacre of Garen 2. To get the context, Garen was discovered at the end of the Mezer era. And when it was discovered, humanity quickly realized that the Garen system, specifically Garen 2, had a species on it that wasn't just a natural sort of, species, like the Copian or the Marok, which are species from other systems. Like the Copian is from Null, the Null system from Ashana. So, lightly habitable world. We don't know where the Marok's from, I believe. Probably from Terra. The Kazi Grazer is from Terra, from the plains of Kazi and Terra. Quasi and Terra. So we've discovered many species which were sort of equivalent to animals. And we discovered many species which were similar to us, sapient, spacefaring. But when we discovered Garen's system, we discovered not only a species that was sapient, but it wasn't even industrialized. So the species on Garen 2 were Stone Age, but they had communication, they had societies, they had agriculture, they were a burgeoning civilization when we discovered them. And famously, Linton Mezer stood up before the entirety of the UEE and declared, "We will be gods, and we will uplift this species and help them into their ascendancy, and they will become part of our great empire." So that lasted like a year, and then Linton Mezer, who was insane, got bored and decided that he was going to instead terraform the planet because it was prime real estate for some really cool bitchin' ass beach view. They could make some really cool resorts. And he was, especially for his friends who were all into like real estate and stuff like that. So he was going to give them, like a little treat for being good boys and girls and helping them out. So he was going to genocide an entire species so he could build a beachfront property. The scientists who originally were paid a lot of money by Linton specifically to start the process of how are we going to uplift the species were not okay with Linton Mezer just touring the planet with his friends, being like, oh yeah, that'd be a hotel could go there. This would be great for like a mansion. And the lead scientist complained about the the irrevocable damage that the Mezzers were doing, that Linton was doing to their project. And because he complained, he got black-bagged and disappeared. As a result, when they began the process of terraforming the planet, somehow the footage of all of this happening was leaked because the scientists had set up cameras and remote blinds to disguise them from the native inhabitants so they could monitor what the native inhabitants were like, what their culture was, what their language was, how they acted, so they could better interact with them in the future. So we had, you know, full HD, 4K, 8K, 32K, footage of a genocide of these people, of this species, choking to death as the atmosphere was slowly changing around them. Somehow this got leaked. Somehow. Maybe by the scientists who were pissed off that they black-bagged their, they disappeared their leader, and then they became active insurgents inside the Mezzer regime. And the people, the 3 people who were part of that program, who almost certainly leaked that, went on to form Rayari Incorporated. Specifically dedicated to attempt to revive the species of the native inhabitants of Garen 2 and reverse the damage. So they are a they manipulate genes. They create. Let's see what they specifically listed as. A human research company that specializes in agriculture and bioengineering. That's the word. So they were founded in 2803, in which they first came into prominence when the founders recreated a complete line of plants from the genetic code of one's indigenous to the recently massacred planet of Garen 2, because they had been studying those plants. Oh my God, they're InGen. Yeah. In 2863, the company expanded into social engineering, creating large arcologies such as Reza's Landing, designed for planets with hostile environments. The company maintains many labs throughout the United Empire of Earth, UEE. So Rayari is now in game. They're headquartered out of Microtech, so it makes sense. But they now have missions which are all research-based missions. So you're supposed to go collect Copian horns or do other aspects of research, which you then return to them specifically, and you get reputation with them. So you can unlock missions for science with Rayari. All right. The last major group which you can gain reputation with in Star Citizen 4.1 is the Biggin. The one that people have been waiting for a long time. Not specifically this, but because of what it represents. Wicklow Emporium. That is how you're supposed to say it, is Wicklow, according to CIG. That is the appropriate pronunciation. But I will call it Wicklow because it makes them mad. And for context, most Banu are really cool that you call them anything. Famously, the first Banu to contact humanity was named Njeri, and no one could pronounce it. So when they first met Njeri and they wanted to communicate, he would say Njeri, and they would hear Jerry? Okay, you're Jerry now. So the Banu was so touched that the humans gave them a name that they just started referring to themselves as Jerry. So their first contact with another alien species, and the guy's name, or the alien's name, was Jerry. See, we already have one of the first great Sir, this is a Whammers moment with Jim C. Welcome, Jim C. Sir, this is a Whammers. Anywho, Wicklow Emporium is a Banu. It's a Banu Suli, run by a Banu named Wicklow, who sends you out on missions to collect various things to help them improve their own art. They're a collector of things. And as a result, as you do missions with them, you can unlock various things. They have sort of a gacha system where if you get certain materials and turn them into Wicklow, you can turn you can trade in those materials for Wicklow favors. And those favors you can then turn in for a random pool of ships or weapons or whatever. They also have a specific mission chain, which is guaranteed to get you a Polaris. So there is a mission chain you can do to get a Polaris from Wicklow. But you can also get a small, medium, or large ship through random pools of like, right now it's like 2, 5, and 12. But you have to get a specific material to be able to get those favors. So, not only is this just a Banu faction, but you actually have to contact the Banu. You contact them on your Moby Glass. They let you land at their stations, and they will contact you through comms every time you turn something in. Now, obviously 4.1 is still in PTU, so some of this stuff is still buggy, and it's the first implementation. But there is a face of an alien that has full motion tracking, lip synced, and fully voiced by a person. They're not speaking Banu, though we do know that there are some lines in the code, we know that there are some lines which Wick is actually speaking Banu, sort of mumbling in Banu. Wicklow Ultra. So, not only is it the first Banu, but it's also the first mission giver in which you can actually get physical items as part of the mission chain. So, like, when you do a mission and you pull, say, a ship out of the random ship slot, it will be spawned for you to take in the hangar of one of the stations, which you will turn in those rewards for Wicklow. So you'll be able to pull them out, and then you've got yourself a ship, be it a Mustang Delta or a Hammerhead, whatever you pull. Someone found him in game and got a selfie with him. Neat. And the missions aren't done in 30 minutes or so. You need some time. Yes, they're very extensive, and the versions that they have in the PTU, they say, is only 10% of the final requirements for the actual game. So a mission that says, hey, I need 3 Copian horns, might require 300 Copian horns in order for you to get it completed. Wicklow is also very endearing because whenever they ask for things, they usually are like, I would also like a burrito and a pips. Not for the actual research, I'm hungry. They're always hungry, which, very endearing. All right, with that all being said, let's also look at the new updated thing for the Hathor group. Will missions stay partially complete if we log out? Unknown as of right now. Your reputation persists with them. So if you complete a mission and then you have another mission to complete overall, you can select the next mission when you log back in. So you do build reputation with them, and there is a chain which will last between sessions, but an individual mission may not. With Tier 0 item recovery in 4.1 PTU, were you able to fully load NPCs? Yeah, it's just players. All right, so this is the Hathor group. This is an interesting one because this was updated about 2 months ago. I caught it being updated and was like, why is the Hathor group being updated specifically with some of this information? So I checked to make sure the previous one and the previous previously Hathor had closed in 2806. They retconned it. They did a stealth retcon. And this is one of those harmless retcons where it's not really, doesn't really matter that much because the Hathor group was supposedly done in 2806. They just extended it out a little bit and then used assets they already had from the creation of Theaters of War to add an event in Star Citizen. So I'm going to read through this and explain a little bit about what Hathor was, because those of you who watch the complete history of Star Citizen lore, you already know the Hathor group. I have talked extensively about the Hathor group. They are a major player in early human colonization because of their colonization of what would be what is now known as the Nexus system, but at the time was known as the Hathor system. The Banu sounds too human. When he speaks English, I wish the voice sounded alien and not like the voice box was exactly like a human larynx. Unfortunately, Luna, we do not have the ability to go beyond the human range of vocal capabilities. Unless you are able to, an abhuman, which is able to go beyond a human larynx, I believe it would be very difficult for a actor to go beyond the human larynx in any way, shape, or form. It is still a video game. All right, Hathor. Hathor Group was a human interplanetary mining concern that employs harsh and artifacts like Mass Effect. It's still human larynx. It's just warped. That's all. And a lot of those things are still part of human language. Most of the aliens in Mass Effect sounded human, just with like reverb added. Toronto person be recorded with a trained parrot. Who knows? They may modify the voice lines in the future for some of the aliens. I think it sounds fine, especially since it's a sci-fi. All right, the Hathor Group was a human interplanetary mining concern that employed harsh, environmentally catastrophic techniques that left otherwise inhabited planets desolate in the company's wake. It purchased the Nexus system from the United Nations of Earth in standard Earth year 2468, strip mining the surface of Lago, Nexus 4, and ignoring the burgeoning criminal activity in the system. Following a run of bad investments and failed claims, the company invested the last of their funds into mining the recently discovered Stanton system in 2853. However, due to some unforeseen difficulties, they were forced to cease operations in the Hathor Group, and the Hathor Group was formally dissolved in 2864. So this was changed, like I said, the whole them going into the Stanton system, which is important because they are in the Stanton system in Star Citizen 4.1. The Hathor Group is closed down. They've been closed down for almost 100 years now, but their facilities are still on places in the Stanton system, specifically Aberdeen and Daymar. They have sort of ground bases, ground operations, and also gigantic mining platforms, laser mining platforms in low orbit. So you can literally mine the surface of the planet. In fact, the way that it works right now for the line and mine system stuff is you align all of the towers. Once you've aligned the towers properly, you can activate the mining laser. It shoots the ground, and then you go to the location on the ground to gather super rare resources. I believe the resources you gather from this are the same resources you need to give to Wicklow to get the specific favors that they want. And it also spawns our old friend, the Valakar. Now, the Valakar is added into the game. The Sandworm is in Star Citizen 4.1. Will it make the final release? I don't know. But there is some changes to the lore of the Valakar. The Valakar comes from Lear 3, where it's its natural habitat. Funny enough, it's also the same natural habitat of the Xiphopod, which I mentioned earlier, which is an invasive species of floating nightmares. And Hollywood and other game devs have gotten great effects for non-humans. You went into White Knight mode just a bit. Luna, I'll see you later. So the Valakar. The Valakar was exported, they now know, from the surface of Lear 3. And it's assumed, based off of what we know from what CIG has said, that scientists and or smugglers or entrepreneurs believe that they could take Valakar and export them to other systems to make money off of them, because the Valakar themselves have rare resources which can be harvested, which include valuable resources specifically for medical technologies. So the idea being, humans being stupid humans, was to take this species, which is highly adaptable, and transport it to somewhere else where they could farm it for money. Not realizing, or not actually realizing, but being arrogant enough to believe that that they could harvest 200-meter long adult specimens. Huge worms. Huge worms. What's the background music? This is just it's custom audio, which was specifically produced for me by Uth O'Reilly, fantastic creator. Check them out. They've done Star Citizen fan music in the past, but they're their own composer as well. They're really good. So we do have some updates with that. So the worms are in game, and they are in fact harvestable. So you can actually kill them and harvest them. Yes, right now it's just the baby worms that we've seen. We haven't seen the full big boys yet. But the baby worms are mineable. You can mine them for resources. And if I remember correctly, how they spawn is when the laser shoots down from the Hathor mining stations, they will come out as well. Yes, I believe they only come after the laser for right now. But they could also randomly spawn in some of the ground stations around the Hathor's facilities. And knowing the Hathor has a bad reputation for environmentally catastrophic issues, they I wouldn't put it past the Hathor group to specifically utilize, to have tempted to bring these Valakar from Lear 3 to use them for mining resources. Does Karenite show up in other places, or just a laser cave? I believe it's just a laser cave. I don't know, though. Karenite. They spawn randomly around Daymar as well. Okay, good to know. Gotta say, the Valakar stories give me managed democracy feels. The difference between Helldivers and Star Citizen in this case is that Super Earth intentionally harvests those species. I want to say the Tyranids, but that's the wrong one. The bugs. The Terminids. They intentionally harvest the Terminids, and it's like government sanctioned. The Valakar, as far as we know, is not government sanctioned mining. It's individuals being stupid and thinking they can get away with it. Let's see. What else is there with 4.1? I think that's it for now. Oh, Volt is in the game. So, Volt. Let's pull them up. All right. Verified off-world laser technologies. They're a human manufacturer that specializes in energy weapons. They produce handheld and ship weapons based on existing and proven technology rather than investing in internal research department to innovate like many other competitors. This has allowed them to offer their products at below market rates and makes them a popular choice among purchasers who are cost conscious. These lower prices may also be indicative of lower quality manufacturing techniques, as the company has frequently been plagued with reliability complaints. However, a formal investigation into their products in 2939 did not reveal a higher than average rate of failure. The Volt lineup includes weapons such as the Zenith Sniper Rifle, Prism Shotgun, Pulse Energy Pistol, and Stinger Repeating Laser. They also have the Parallax Assault Rifle and Quartz Energy SMG. Are Volts supposed to be intended to be non-lethal? No, they are lethal weapons. The non-lethal weapon would be something like the Preacher Arms. Preacher Armaments is the one that makes the non-lethal stun weapons. We learned nothing from the Kudzu Vine. No, we didn't. Hi, Paul. Big fan of the channel. Not usually a poster, but interested to know if there will be any more parts of the Complete History series. Thanks. So, the Complete History series, the next episode has been undergone for a very long time. My editor, it was finished back in, like, my side of things was finished back in December, or November. But my editor at the end of the year they're my editor, but they do work with other people, so they couldn't prioritize the work on my project until like January, February, and then my audio, the people who were doing the audio gratis, by the way, I've tried to pay them before. Thank you, Escape, for that $2. And they this properly. They had another project they were working on, so they couldn't get to it until March. So it was just one of those things where the pieces didn't align properly. And when the final project was sent to me, or the working print was sent to me, I reviewed it, and it had a lot of problems that needed to get fixed. It was desynced, and there were some other issues, like the videos didn't make a lot of, like the images didn't sync up with what was being said and everything like that. So it's still being worked on. It's going to take a little bit longer. I hope to release it by the end of the month, but with the amount of issues I've been having, I can't guarantee it. But there is going to be another episode coming out soon. Soon in terms of Star Citizen soon. Before 1.0. Funny enough, there's just not a lot of folks. There's also not a lot of folks. While it is a popular series, and I do get a lot of people who watch it, it is probably one of my least watched series in terms of least watched video series in terms of overall views. Any given video on ships does so much better than the Complete History series does. But I will say, once the next Complete History series comes out, I'm gonna go through and combine all of the Complete History series videos that we've done so far into a single video, which will be called The Golden Age of Humanity. So that'll be, 2.5 hours long. So those of you who like your compilation videos, those big compilation videos, it'll be up there. And then when I get the next group of like the Devarin or the Devarin Wars, 1 and 2, and the late Meser era, those will all be combined together. Everglades pet shop trade, yes. Yeah, it's the bugs I was thinking of. I just found the idea of spreading the Valakar for profit to feel close. They are close. That is definitely close. Yes, they removed the baby carrier from 4.1. For those of you who don't know, I do stream on youtube.com/TheAstroPub live and twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. If you see that name, heard that name, I am the same person as the Astropub. I stream there weekly. I stream there Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, and then some Mondays. If I'm not streaming here on Mondays, I'm streaming there on Mondays. So I do Star Citizen content, other content, but that's just sort of my gaming side rather than the lore side. So if you want a more casual, less lore specific focused, where I play the game and stuff like that, I still go on lore rants because I go on lore rants. But they specifically, up to this point, you could clip anything that wasn't a grenade, anything that was throwable, you could equip to a grenade slot. So I had taken a box turtle, which you can find, which is a throwable item, and I equipped it to the grenade slot on the very dead center of the chest. And I had been running around saying it was the Xi'an ambassador's child, whom I was giving a interspecies exchange while we went around and did awful things to the rest of humanity. And it was cute because the way it was placed, whenever like a bar would go down for it, its little feetsies would be on the bar, or it would be like on the controls of the ship. It was very cute. And then CIG realized we were having fun with it and removed the ability to do so. Is the Volt the same as the Karna? No, Volt and Karna are different. Volt is the Volt. You can think of the Volt systems as 3D printed weapons. Volt is designed to be the cheapest of the cheap. They don't use new technologies. They use old technologies that they can produce tons of. So the Volt weapons aren't going to be the best damaging weapons ever, but they're going to be super common in the verse. Whereas like the Karna and the Kastek arms weapons are designed specifically to take down the Vanduul. So their weapon lineup is designed to tackle a full armored Vanduul charging at you. They're all supposed to be cheap. But they're supposed to be effective and cheap. I would imagine Volt weapons will cost way less than Kastek weapons, but I also imagine that Volt weapons will be much easier to modify because the technology is so much more basic than even a Kastek arms weapon. You can think of a Volt weapon as like a 3D printed weapon that we have today, where you can 3D print assault rifles or SMGs. Whereas Kastak Arms is more like Kalashnikov. Cheap to make, but higher quality and going to survive, going to last you longer than a bolt weapon. The reason why a lot of people like them is because as you fire them, they heat up. And as they heat up, they actually turn into a beam. So it starts off as a pew, 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 pew. But as it speeds up and its fire, pew, 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 it just goes into a beam that then hits you. So, and it'll eventually overheat and shut down, but it's basically like a cycle that spins up to the point where it's just a beam that shoots out. Hot shot volt gun, yeah. Nothing will trump bearing, my beloved. Bearing is like H and K. Oh, well, they're Klaus and Werner is Heckler and Koch, but I'm probably saying that wrong. But bearing takes all of the bearings designs are basically H and K weapons. 10 out of 10 sound design. Thank you, 4-4. X, you're going to have to pay money to hear me say that again. You heard it first time. You can go back and clip it. Meaning you can fulfill both the roles of the squad designated rifleman and rifleman. You mean an automatic weapon? Oh, so like the squad automatic weapon and rifleman? That's why I love them, since our M27 is a dressed up HK416. Yeah. Now Klaus and Werner is actually Heckler and Koch. That's they're like their whole. That's even in the name scheme. It's the whole idea. Bearing or bearing? It's Behring. The thing about bearing is that bearing is General Electric. Like, literally bearing is General Electric. Because bearing also makes the Goliath shipbuster railguns that are equipped on every Bengal carrier. They make a lot of ship-based weapons, as we probably know. They also make microwaves. Coffee cups or coffee makers, washing machines. Their weapons division is called Bearing Applied, but the regular Bearing Technologies exists. Uh-oh, he asked for money only from X, not from the rest of you. Can you make a video explaining all the ship weapons and why the verse uses the term size and not caliber for its various ship weapons? The easiest way to answer that, because there hasn't been an explanation as to why they use size, the easiest way of explaining that is similar to how, like in the MechWarrior universe, they use specific weapon mount types, because instead of it being more about caliber, it's more about universal mounting points. So a large caliber weapon may be able to be mounted to a small mount, but it'd probably be inaccurate. But you could also put a small caliber mount or multiple small caliber weapons on a smaller mount so you can have rapid fire. So it's just standardization of mounting points rather than calibers. Each weapon is supposed to fire its own caliber or its specific shape, depending on, because they have plasma weapons and energy weapons, but it has more to do with standardization across the board. Does that make sense? Respect to you. That's me pulling information, pulling what CIG has talked about and what the lore has discussed. There's not been an explicit way as to why they don't do calibers. CIG also does probably not understand caliber properly, because at one point, the actual size of the railgun fired from the Goliath was several times smaller than it should have been. Like the same caliber as a 777 artillery, modern 777 artillery. When those cannons are the size of a like, each one of those cannons is the size of a constellation in terms of its length and size. Maybe it's just wrong 3D modeling. It's a mistake in the lore. They specifically mentioned the wrong thing. They probably just missed a decimal point. The decimal point should have been further back rather than forward. CIG is notoriously not really gun savvy when it comes to a lot of the details. There are people who work at CIG who are firearms owners and users who develop some of the guns, but not all of them are. A lot of them are just video game designers, so they're going to make cool stuff for sci-fi weapons. Yeah, 130 millimeter ship buster. The way that they could, if they wanted to keep 130 millimeter as the size, they could justify that as a sabot round, and the actual 130 is like the core of a planet, you know, like dying star kind of material, like some incredibly dense material at that size, because it's relatively small, but if it's dense and being fired out of a sabot at a fraction of the speed of light, it's going through whatever it hits, kind of thing. Yeah, it's the speed of the round, the mass of the round, not necessarily the size of the round. Because if it's dense, or the density, I guess, that's the same thing as mass, right? Or similar. But that's what I said at the very beginning. Star Citizen is a game in development. There'll be some changes here and there, because when you're writing 900 years of history, you're going to cross your wires here and there. And stuff that CIG wants to create that's just good for the game right now that they're developing, sometimes will go against things they've developed in the past, but those things are usually pretty minor. Like I mentioned, Hathor having existed, was supposed to only exist to 2806. Now it's been pushed forward because they wanted it to coincide with the discovery of the Stanton system and have Hathor's last gasp be in the Stanton system. Does that change the lore? Yes. Did any of you know it except for myself? Probably not. It was a minor data point in a story or in a company which barely anybody even gave a shit about, because it's just not really in the game yet. So until it reaches the game, it's going to be in fluid. I gradually interpreted the size categorization as the amount of volume that X gun takes up. I think that's a good way of putting it. But we know that the mounts are specific for, the sizes are pretty consistent across the board. The size 1 missile rack is about the same as a size 1 weapon hardpoint. So it could be a combination of the two, where it is the volume of that X gun takes up, combined with the mounting point of which it can handle that volume. Regardless of caliber, yeah. Because you got to remember, this isn't also like today we have the benefit that almost all weapons are gunpowder based or some version of that, where you ignite an accelerant which fires a projectile out of a barrel into a location. There's some sort of chemical reaction that's firing the weapon, and you're firing an actual physical projectile rather than plasma or energy. So when you're dealing with like different types of damage models that they're going with in the game, they'll likely come up with some hand wavium real like you can't really deal with calibers. And CIG also wants to standardize a lot of these things because they want to make the size of the weapon also, like repeaters, for instance, will fire the same caliber bullet if they're a ballistic repeater, because it's just, for gameplay purposes, a lot easier. So you can think of something, I'm sure in the lore, they'll come up with some NATO-style system where there's a standardizations of ammo, because it's just simpler for the UEE military to use. So if the UEE military is already using it and there's very lax regulations in terms of civilian usage of weapons on ships, it's just for standardization, warehousing, and sales, makes sense to just use the same caliber of weapons or caliber of ammo across the board. Walking around the supermarket listening to the Astro Puppets therapy. I'm glad to hear. I remember the backgrounds from Halo were described in the books as being solid metal slugs roughly the size of a Greyhound bus. Railguns are magnetic based, so use of dense slugs fired at high velocity for max damage. Yeah. They achieve maximum velocity very quickly. I think they don't railguns achieve max velocity out of the barrel? Whereas like even traditional ballistic rounds, like, chemical based projectiles, don't they take time to build up to their max velocity? So like if you shoot someone point blank, it's going to have less velocity than if you shot them at a slight distance. I am an amateur when it comes to any of that sort of information. This is just me sort of spitballing. Is there a possibility it has more to do with barrel length? Okay. I thought barrel length was more to do with accuracy, but I'm assuming that's also the same thing. It's the same idea. I may also be confusing it with the rocket-propelled rounds. The ones where you fired and they would go get out of the chamber and then they'd ignite a rocket motor after that. Modern ballistic weapons will have highest velocity at the muzzle. Okay. Yeah, before leaving the barrel, they're at max velocity. Okay. Hey, if you want to learn something about naval weapons, I'm an historian on the matter. Feel free to lay it on me. I'm not a subject matter expert when it comes to naval weapons. Railguns are still charge-based, very high velocity off the barrel. Okay. Barrel length and how much the powder can be burned before the projectile exits the muzzle. Okay. Navy built a battleship-sized railgun. It was effective up to 1 kilometer. Took too long to charge up in massive amount of energy. Cool as fuck, not effective. Yeah, the one that was going to be put on the Zumwalt destroyers that they canceled. You found on the Zumwalt, yeah. Railguns are a neat idea and they can function, but they're not as they're more expensive and difficult to use compared to just traditional ballistic missiles or missile platforms. Some company back in the 70s made a gun called the gyrojet. That's the one I was referring to. And it was a jet-propelled projectile that would gain velocity as it traveled. Yeah, I might be confusing it with that one, because I remember when it first leaves the barrel, it actually isn't very energetic, but then it activates like a rocket motor or like a jet motor, and then continues to go, which was the inspiration for the bolter from 40K. I always want to get my own gyrojet so I can dress up like a bolt pistol from 40K. I'm not an expert on space-based naval weapons, but I'm very surprised there aren't any ballistic weapons in game that have shells with small thruster packs to let them home. It's important to also keep in mind when you're talking about Star Citizen is that Star Citizen isn't seeking to be realistic in terms of all aspects of the game. It's seeking a verisimilitude in terms of what its storytelling is. But we always have to come to the grips with Star Citizen at its core, at its inception, was about a World War II dogfighting simulator in space with bird aliens. Star Citizen was never intended to be super realistic in terms of like alien species portrayal, in terms of like how flight would work. No games outside of, say, Kerbal Space Program, as far as I know, have a perfect one-to-one recreation of exactly how things would work. Do I dress this well for work? Sometimes. I'm a teacher, so like that is my day job is a teacher. I personally think the best word for that is they're shooting for is authenticity, not real per se. It feels like a game. That's why I like to use the word verisimilitude. It's a fancy word, but it basically means feels real rather than being real. It feels like it should be real. And most games shoot for their own verisimilitude in some way, shape, or form. A good example of this is Kingdom Come Deliverance. As somebody who has studied Europe in the 14th century, as part of what I actually went to school for, it's not realistic. Like, the way they speak, how they act isn't realistic. But there are elements in the game which directly correspond with what actually happened in 15th century Bohemia. And a lot of like individual ideas and the way they're expressing it, it's all very like authentic. But the language, how they talk, how people react to each other is very modern. But it doesn't seek to be anything but a sort of a modern look at making a fun video game about the 14th century Bohemia. It wants to be as authentic as it can be while still being a video game. And I think every game tries to see, even super realistic games, seek that sort of balance, because at the end of the day, it's still a video game. Even the most hardcore Sims have that sort of aspect to it. Yeah, the whole idea of dogfighting in space is fundamentally wrong. It would never happen, but it is a trope in science fiction. It is the basis of the entirety of the Wing Commander series. It is one of the bases of Elite Dangerous, of Star Wars, of Battlestar Galactica, and it's a very visceral feel, and people like it, which is why it's there. But again, that's important to keep in mind, so that CIG is dedicated for some stupid reason on explaining everything in the game. So there are going to be explanations for everything, even if it's not super realistic, because it just wants to justify its own existence. Like, for instance, the reason why we can only travel up to a certain speed while there's a speed limit in space, which is actually slower than modern capabilities, is a internal inbuilt system for ships, specifically because ships are built with those speed limits in mind for safe travel in a crowded space area. You can think of them as internal limiters on drives and ships, or ships are built around these limitations specifically because the law requires ships to not go beyond a certain speed. Because if they go beyond a certain speed, you can imagine millions of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of ships traversing space at any given time, going at incredible speeds. Most of them are not astronauts, and without a coordinated ATC system, which the UEE does not want to deal with. They do not want to have any sort of complex tracking system the way we have modern flight trackers and air traffic controllers. They had to put in some limitations for civilian travel, even military travel. So while you may or may not like that explanation, it's something that they use in the game as a justification for why they have speed limits. Outlaws never have the follow speed limits, rip out the limiters. It's not a limiter in the sense that it's like a built-in, like it could go faster. The ships are physically built to not be able to go that fast. So the engines cannot exceed that. They'd have to completely build their own ships. And I can see CIG doing that as an explanation in the future of why certain ships are, you can maybe modify your ships to go faster, but the space frame itself isn't designed to handle those speeds or maneuver at those speeds. Really, it would be much more immersive if they didn't try to justify game limitations with lore like that. CIG, for whatever reason, wishes to do that as a person who deals with the lore all the time. I'm okay with it. It gives me more content. But it's to each their own, I come at it from the perspective of it's a game about World War II dogfighting with bird aliens. It was never supposed to be super realistic. I look at it as a lot of science fiction. It's sort of a reflection of modern day, or it has its own sort of story it wants to tell for whatever reason, and it's a video game. Okay, now I want to hear the reason why the Vanduul hold the speed limit in honor of the enemy to kill everyone. They might, actually. The Vanduul are also scavengers, so they may have that speed limit just because their ships are incapable of traveling beyond those limits because they steal their technologies from other civilizations. So it could be they just never develops beyond that limit in the first place. Because they're crap. Watch CIG hires you and makes you the lore master. They wouldn't hire me. They have their own lore master. It's Dave Haddock, and they have a really good team of writers who are pretty good at what they do. But they're always limited by what CIG wants to do internally. Vanduul, no slow knife penetrates the shield. I like the Dune reference. But no, they are a meritocracy. Like, extreme meritocracy. It used to be, in the lore, that the more highly admired the Vanduul, the less armor they would wear. So they would actually physically limit themselves and make themselves weaker to an enemy to prove that they were more badass than their opponents. They're not really interested in developing weapons that could destroy everyone because that defeats the purpose of battle. Just like Rambo, less is more. So kill rules, yeah. How often do you play the game these days? Love your videos. As I said earlier, I stream on youtube.com/theastropub live and twitch.tv/theastropub. I stream on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I play it quite frequently. Typically, I play the game live on Twitch sometimes on Fridays, because I usually play with my friend Logan Plays. We do co-op games, often Star Citizen, but sometimes we played Space Marine, we've played Mech Warrior, we had an entire Mech Warrior 5 playthrough, we played Mech Warrior 5 Clans for a bit. We played Helldivers a lot. So yeah, we play a lot of other games. That I also play on Saturdays before I do my Captain's Table podcast. And then I also play on Sundays with my organization, the League of Relic Enthusiasts. And on Mondays, if I'm not streaming here, I'm streaming over there with a Zero to Hero run on Star Citizen. So typically I play at least, I would say, 10 hours a week from just Star Citizen, minimum. On average, that would be the minimum. It's like 8 to 10. So it's just adolescent worms in the game right now? Yes, I believe it's just those. Any 24-hour streams planned this week? No 24-hour streams, but I am getting an upgrade to my PC because my PC is very old. I actually got the RAM in today, and my processor is going to come in next week. I've ordered it, but it's going to take a little longer. So all I need to do is the motherboard, the power source, the M2 drive, and of course the big one, which is the graphics card. Right now I'm rocking for my gaming PC a 11700K, i7 1100K, a 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, one M2 SSD, very small, and a 2070 Super. It serves me well. It still works pretty well for what it's worth for Star Citizen, but all of those are older chipsets, the older models. So I needed to do a complete rebuild from scratch, and then, gaming PC of Theseus that over time. Will you get a PC build stream? Possibly. You don't want to see me fuck up. I'm a terrible PC builder. Execute sending me stuff. Neat. Congratulations, X. It looks really good. You're building it. X is showing off his PC parts that he's purchased, which is neat. Congratulations. Yeah, it's gonna be a while for me to get all of my parts. Duel also used to change color in line with their intent, no? Yes. I don't know if they may still do that, but it might be more subtle. Are we ever allowed to jump in and play with you? Yeah. I do group missions with group events with the League of Relic Enthusiasts, my organization, on Sundays. You just have to make sure you check out the Discord. That's the Astropub Discord, where you can sign up. I'll post when I'm streaming, what days and what times, and usually the officers of the organization of the league will post like who the coordinator is and where you should meet up, all that kind of stuff. 4.1 isn't coming out soon. That is true. 4.1 is an open PTU, but the earliest I would say we would see 4.1 is March 28th. The latest would be like April 4th. So we still got 2 to 3 weeks of 4.1 before they go live with it. PC of Theseus is the correct way to PC. The issue with the PC of Theseus is you need to start off with a future upgradable path, and my current motherboard is last generation motherboard. It can't even support DDR5 RAM, let alone the latest Intel Intel processors, let alone AMD. So the next one is going to be an AMD build. It should be it's a 9800 X3D with 48 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, with 4 gigabytes of an M2 SSD, with 2 other slots possible. No, 4 terabytes. I want to say megabytes. 4 terabytes. M2 SSD. And then hopefully I get a 9070 XT. Is what I'm shooting for, because I don't have 4K. I do 1440, and while 5070 Ti would be a better range for me, it's also, even if it's available, it's typically almost double the price of a 9070 XT, even at higher prices of the XT, non-MSRP prices. So we'll see. You think we'll see new space combat missions, Paul? I would hope so. It depends on if where we're going to get them from as well. Shiori, thank you so much for that 33 months of support. Oh, I also didn't see Ramin Noodle. 11 months. So 33 months and 11 months. Thank you so much for that. Loken is busy as he's still not back on Infrunners, invited me to his server. Yes, he is very busy right now. His brain is so super focused on his education currently. I also don't know if UE doesn't utilize missiles on the scale we do today. I know gameplay-wise it's because gun-based dogfights are way more fun to watch than someone going Fox 2 and then deleting a ship 5 miles away. But I want to know the lore reason why UE missiles seem like garbage compared to what we have now. Von Hofstadt, there's actually some explanation behind that. The biggest explanation behind why technology seems to be going backwards is because twofold. One, the UEE is a massive empire where space lanes aren't fully secured and the logistics network isn't as advanced as it is today, because today you can pretty much get anything from the other side of the world within a week. But in the UEE, you can't be guaranteed any materials in any sort of that time. It could take months or years to get these sort of materials. And a lot of materials have to be sourced from multiple different locations to go to a specific location. So the logistics hub sucks. So building a missile is a lot more intensive than building a ballistic weapon, or even like an energy or plasma weapon, because you can reuse those weapons versus a missile is a one shot. So they're cheap. The other they're cheap because they have to be cheap in order to justify the creation of them. One of the biggest companies that produces missiles for the UEE military is actually Hurston Dynamics. So you can see that's the top of the line missile technology is being created by the people who use slave labor as a means of producing their weapons. So you're getting it for the lowest bidder kind of thing. The other reason is because AI technologies are banned. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the Star Citizen universe is effectively backwards compared to us in terms of AI technologies. The only technologies that are allowed are expert system technologies, but it's not that we can't build them. We've built human level intelligence AIs in Star Citizen's history hundreds of years ago. The problem is that every time humans have built a human level or beyond AI technology, it screws up and kills a bunch of people. And because people are easily frightened of what they don't understand, and a lot of these incidents were mega failures, like millions dead, or hundreds of thousands, if not millions dead, or big, spectacular, and showy, where a specific project like the Chariot project with Artemis, or the Artemis system, which was the first attempt to colonize a distant star using quantum travel technology. When it failed spectacularly, the AI was blamed on it. Effectively, AI got this rap of being unreliable. Even if it was super advanced, it was unreliable and flawed, and we couldn't get it to work. And every time we've tried to get it to work, it's failed. So smart missile technologies that exist today may not even be allowed on missiles in the UEE because it could border on that technology. You also got to remember things like, for instance, modern smart missiles heavily, like GPS guided bombs, for instance, rely on the GPS system. So it requires a complete satellite network, which is constantly transmitting data to missiles. And again, I'm not a subject matter expert on this. I assume that there are very few modern smart missiles that don't use some sort of guidance technology, either programmed into them or beamed to them through communications, active uplink communications to a like a satellite network or to an outside communication source. And we on Earth have the advantage of having mapped the entire surface of the planet, so a smart missile might be able to scan its surroundings and know where it is based off of what its surroundings it's looking at. Whereas in the future, you launch a missile somewhere between Magna and Aberdeen, the missile doesn't know where the fuck it is. It isn't able to like star chart calculate where it is and be able to figure out where it's going. So while that is not an official explanation from CIG, they have heavily implied that, because one of the reasons why AI is banned in the Star Citizen universe is because Chris Roberts specifically wanted World War II dogfighting in space. So anything that would take the control away from the player was to be removed. So that's their sort of catch-all for why isn't this in the game, even though we have it today? AI. Oh, so UE went full Machine Crusade, effectively. What was the name of it? The Jihad in Dune, where they destroyed all the machines? Wasn't it more real AI and not our iteration of AI? Isn't that why AI blades are allowed, but more iteration of AI, the Butlerian Jihad, yeah. Sort of. Like I said, the modern fly-by-wire systems may not even be allowed by UEE standards because it may be too advanced. Something like an AI blade in a ship is a very basic version. We have like similar technologies with it's the CWIS, and there's a land version of it as well, where you can like track incoming targets with with an automated system that can target things. It's probably a basic version of that in comparison. Mostly because CIG is going to make it so it isn't an instant kill shot. Because AI blades, which is a thing that CIG wants to implement for the game before 1.0, is effectively like having a virtual NPC in your turret. So an AI blade would be something that you could install into a manned turret, but then it would act like an NPC in that manned turret. You'd give it orders and it would do what it needs to do. But you don't have to feed them, you don't have to clothe them, you don't have to give them a place to sleep, but they will use energy. So it's just a way of putting in a player or an NPC, and their CIG wants to make those things probably less efficient, or definitely less efficient and maybe even less effective than even an NPC in those turrets. Yeah, no, we in the Star Citizen universe, they created AGI. We know about it. And it was built for the Artemis system. It was Janice was her name. Did you mention them? So after CIG implemented PDCs, do you think they'll get AI blades soonish? Yeah, because PDCs that is the CWIS system, isn't it? The PDCs are the same idea, and we can see how stupid PDCs are in Star Citizen right now. I think they'll get a little bit better, but that's going to be the limitation of them. PDCs and blades are also going to be different, yeah, because PDCs are remote turrets that you can sort of hands off, but even AI blades are probably going to be more in the realm of hands off as well, but they're specifically input into manned turrets. Whereas like remote turrets can now be slaved, several remote turrets can be slaved to the pilot even in 4.1. And that's likely what they're going to go going forward. AI blades are only for manned turrets, previously manned turrets, but I still don't think the pilot will be able to control them. One is point and shoot, and the other is pretend I'm a dumb human. Yeah. Blades are like the line from Short Circuit. It's a machine. It doesn't get scared. It doesn't get happy. It doesn't get sad. It just runs programs. Yeah. You'd still tell it fight hostile targets, and they'll choose hostile targets, but you may not have the full capability of telling which specific hostile target it's going to target. It's just going to target targets. They will also be power, and they'll draw power, so that you have to use power to function, and they'll generate heat. So you won't be able to use AI blades effectively if you're using other systems. You may actually have to shut down other systems specifically to use AI blades. Johnny Five's my co-pilot, yeah. You're thinking AI blade will auto itself? Yes, because they're specific for manned turrets. Like you can AI blade every turret in a hammerhead. And from a gameplay perspective, I see them as a stepping stone to NPCs. So you can hire an NPC to stick in that turret, but they're going to cost you resources. They have to have a bed. They have to sleep, so they won't be able to be up all the time. Whereas an AI blade can take control of that same location and use the same systems, but it will require resources, just not sleeping and eating. It will require power and heat, which is precious on board your ships. The idea being, if you, in terms of favorability, most players, the base favorability that's the least favorite will be AI blades. Then the step up will be NPCs, and a step up from that will be players. So other players will still end up being the best version for your ships. For gameplay purposes, that's because they don't have to sleep. like they may have to eat, but a player, you have to pay them, but they're probably going to cost you less in terms of overall credits than paying for and hiring an NPC. And they'll likely, the worst NPC or the worst player will still probably be at the same level, if not a little bit better than the best NPC. Didn't CIG say blades were for remote turrets only? I was waiting for AI crew to put in man turrets. I don't believe so. But if you do have a link that says they're only for remote turrets, please let me know so I can correct it. Because they have said in the past that you can use AI blades to AI blade hammerheads. It's been brought up in reference to hammerheads in the past, that you could put an AI blade for all the hammerhead turrets. And none of the hammerhead turrets are remote, they're all manned. I think they've gone back and forth on that, RE remote versus manned. The latest change with 4.1 allowing for a lot of ships that currently have remote turrets to be slaved to the pilot, I think that indicates more that they're probably doing AI blades for manned turrets, because that would also make sense in terms of, like I just said, the hierarchy, where these are the things you could use for those manned turrets. It allows for a good balancing experience. And it should also allow for players to, like pilots of most ships, to be able to use most of the remote turrets. just kind of to fly. It's an interesting balance, yeah. I don't think it's out of the question for CIG to allow for the Scorpius turret, for instance, to be slaved to the pilot. However, they've said in the past that you could slave it, but it'll be locked to the front position. It won't be gimbaled, and I'm sure it'll also be some sort of engineering. There'll be some sort of engineering compromise, heat, power, something like that. Ooh, there we go, from October of last year. AI blades are part of 1.0 plan. They will not be as effective as other players, and they will take additional power to run. We also have a way of upgrading them through tiers, but again, will never be as good as a good player. Also, as AI blades provide the most functionality, NPC crew will most likely be post 1.0 plan. But this doesn't specifically refer to AI blades as being blades specifically for like man turrets versus remote turrets. Yeah, but it does say specifically they will not be as effective as other players, and they will take additional power to run, which at least implies that they're going to be replacing, well, there'll be an alternative to NPCs for man turrets. Then you rebalance all the fighters and increase those that are under guns, so movement can be more enjoyable pace. Yeah. We're kind of moving out of the lore discussion, though. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Specific questions about the lore of Star Citizen, any other things you want to talk about, I'm always here for that. That's what this is specifically for. But we're kind of coming towards the end of it. We got about maybe like 20 minutes left. You're good. No, it usually happens like this when I talk specifically on lore stuff. We veer into the gameplay stuff. Whenever we talk about gameplay stuff, people veer into lore stuff. Back during the IAE, you mentioned that UEE actually had accepted a contract for the Saber in the second fly off contest, and it was in service. Where did CIG announce that? It was in the Saber brochure specifically, if I can remember correctly. Let me look it up. All right. There you go. Boop. Aegis Dynamics designed the Saber in response to United Empire of Earth's Navy request for a proposal of next-generation fighter capable of outmatching the Vandal Stinger-class heavy fighter in speed and turning. While the Navy has not yet accepted the Saber bid, Aegis has opted to make a run of production prototypes available for licensed civilian operators. So that was as of 2945. But there are references to Sabres being in operation with the Navy since then. Well, you kind of educated us well about the lore. Yeah. Have they made anything? Have they made anything on how Leilani is doing as Imperator? They've mentioned a couple of things. The issue is basically she's sort of stuck in limbo because nobody in the Senate likes her because she's an outsider. She's a third-party candidate. She wasn't part of any political party. And as a result, she has had a very difficult time passing any legislation that she wants to pass. She's barely been able to get a couple of compromises for her cabinet because she does align somewhat well with the transitionalists, but the transitionalists don't 100% like her, especially her AI stance. So up to this point, she's been very much sidelined. Probably her biggest achievement is the popularization and full utilization of regen, which, as we know, is going to be a major plot point in this year's gameplay. So it's going to be the major B plot point about why regen has stopped working in some cases. How far do you think the Frontier Fighters narrative is going to go now that we know they're probably attacking Invictus? They said it in the end of my video that I don't think this is the last we're going to see of them. I think the Frontier Fighters will go up to the end of the year at the very least, and may even end up being an organization you could potentially join in the future, but we'll see. Me eat food now. Very, very eloquent there, X. What harvestable resources do you get from the Valacar? I found nothing on the Juvenile. I don't know specifically. Chat may be able to help you out with that one. What can we expect from the B-side story about failed regens happening? Likely efforts for specific research. So it'll be missions to run for you to gather data or do research or other things like that specifically for them. Watch them blame it on her. Maybe it's her fault, who knows? We did sort of push into production, like the UEE did push into production, and like effectively what Leilani did was she took something that was developed under the previous Imperator, Costigan, and when she discovered it was successfully tested, immediately moved to make it completely open source. So anyone could produce their own Ibrahim sphere with the right information and the right resources. The thing that isn't open source, as far as we know, is the regen gel, the fluid that is created specifically to help reprint a human, which is created by Bioticorp. That is still seems to be proprietary technology, because obviously Addison doesn't want to go after big tech, but the Ibrahim sphere was designed specifically under government contract. So the sphere itself was a military project, so she could open source that. teeth and pearls, you think? Okay. The adult has pearls. Does the juvenile have teeth? I don't think the juvenile Valakar resources has resources, just enemies. Okay. Why are there still political posters in Loreville? The same reason why there's a poster for some band that hasn't been in your city for 4 years, slapped somewhere on a wall in your downtown area, because no one's taking them down. Because they used to be everywhere. They weren't just in Loreville. They were in Loreville, they were in ArcCorp, and I think they're just now in Loreville. They may still be in some places of ArcCorp. Who did you vote for in 2950, if you did? I voted for Mira Go. I always forget how to pronounce it. It's Korean, but it's spelled NGO. And I always say Ngo, but like, I know I've heard some people that it's just pronounced Go, like just Go, drop like a silent N, but Mira. Like the K in Knights, yeah. Mira Go. She's a transitionalist candidate. The reason why Leilani Addison won is because the community. I'm trying to say this in the most political, most neutral way possible, the most least offensive way possible. The community is has an easy ability to fixate on anything that CIG discusses as some sort of signal for what CIG wants to do. So when they saw the elections coming in, they wanted to vote for Leilani Addison because Leilani Addison specifically was all about AI technology. And so many people who voted in the election for Leilani Addison voted for Leilani Addison with the belief that if they voted for Leilani Addison, then CIG would prioritize NPCs in the verse or AI blades in the verse, as a sort of a hoping that this would signal to CIG that they should prioritize this specific gameplay feature. Similar to how in the past people have pushed for specific ships to become best in show because they wanted CIG to give it skins and or to overhaul the ship so that they would bring it up to gold standard. That's not how it works, but a lot of people thought that way. And there are some people who legitimately voted for Addison, like Lazy Space Troll, and I heard this before. It's like a lot of people voted for Leilani Addison because they like AI technologies. So they're just like, yeah, let's do AI. Not necessarily from a meta perspective, but from a lore perspective. But I did hear people discuss that they were voting for Leilani Addison so that CIG would make NPCs a priority. And here we are, her term's not even over, and we have NPCs carrying on conversations. I think it worked. It kind of makes sense for it to work like that way. Since in lore AI is illegal, in lore AI is legal, it would seem that electing someone that is all about AI would make CIG work on it. Yeah, but it's not how it turned out to be, because the election was in 2020. Like or 2019, actually. No, it was 2019. It was 2020. It was 2020. A lot of players voted for RSI for the large miner, the Erastra, to get RSI assets started for the players, Perseus and Orion. Yeah. I think the Regen Crisis is going to screw over Addison. That may be the catalyst for CIG to have a snap re-election where Addison has to step down from Imperator because of the scandal around Regen. And that would give players the ability to vote for another candidate. My only hope is if they do that they do it in-game. I'm tired of most of my experience of Star Citizen in terms of lore being me reading articles on the website. Because when the game actually has lore that you can find and research and it's sprinkled around with stories being told through mission givers and locations, then I believe more people will be invested in all of this sort of ancillary stuff like when the Hornet was created or when was Lorville founded and who the Hurstons are. We are definitely getting news reports blaring on screens in the spaceport. That's for sure. We just don't know when. I'm guessing 4.1 or 4.2, one of the two. I don't. Addison's going to be deposed, but I wouldn't be surprised if she steps down, if she, what is it called? Retires effectively. I want to open my motor glass and watch a podcast of contrary pundits discussing one of the candidates. Hot Shots, I think is what it's called. There's actually a debate, like broadcast on Spectrum, where they bring two opposing viewpoints of a specific thing together, and they give them each time to discuss, and then this debate back and forth. It's like Hot Shots, Hot Seat, something like that. Yeah, they're on the site. But all of those are written as if they are transcripts from actual broadcasts. And I believe CIG's intent is to move all of those that are broadcast transcriptions that are on the website into in-game video format. The problem is that requires a lot of attention and energy with their mocap studio and doing that in there because they're going to want to fully mocap it. So I expect any of those sort of situations to be quarterly, where once a quarter we'll get, like a video that will stay in rotation for maybe 1 or 2 quarters, and then the next videos will come out as they sort of develop stories over time. Why not audio only played from the Moby or ships, radio stuff? Do I have a Rayari video? No. Crossfire is the NBC or the old CNN thing. It's not Crossfire. It's not called Crossfire. But why not audio? Because CIG is CIG. They're going to go for absolute immersion. They're going to want you to do as much of that as possible. Look it up the real quick. It'll take me a bit to get there. Because they stopped doing a lot of these updates a while ago. Not clean shot. I should know this because it was actually in one of the complete history of Star Citizen lore videos. It's actually one of the oldest running shows in Spectrum. Showdown. That's what it's called. Showdown. There you go. I do not have a Rayari lore video yet. I do plan on doing one because it's got some interesting lore to it, but I want to confirm a couple things before I do. Because I'm going to go full bore down like all of the details. Like we know a couple of specific plants which have been manipulated by Rayari. I have to find the information that specifically mentions that the the Boreal Stalker was genetically engineered by Rayari. But yeah. It's definitely something I want to do. But there's a lot of stuff I want to do with Star Citizen. Like right now, the Banu video is taking priority because Banu, baby. What about the major shops? Like we know the Cousin Crows will be Crossroads, but like Central Mass and Omega Pro and stuff. What about them, Captain Dab? Where does the 10-year political cycles come from? It seems like a little long in game. It comes from the idea that each Imperator is supposed to only serve for 10 years for one term. It's more of a sort of a background lore thing rather than a game play implication. But we don't only just vote for the Imperator. We also vote for senators like Suj Kosi, who's the current Tavaran senator from the Tavaran homeworld, is the first Tavaran elected to the Senate, and he was elected by the players. They actually did election, that kind of stuff. Is there lore on them? Yeah, Center Mass and Omega Pro have some lore, not a tremendous amount. I have to look them up because I don't know them off the top of my head. Yeah, like the most we know about Center Mass is that they are a human spacecraft weapons and armor retailer with franchise stores in multiple locations across the UEE. Founded as a weapons-only store, they added armor to their inventory in 2939. They also keep mechanics on staff for installation, modification, and repair of any items purchased at a Centermass store. And then Omega Pro. So this is from one of their advertisements. We all trust our ship to do a lot of things. We all trust our ship for a lot of things. It's our transport, our lifeline, our protector, our career. It's there for the long hauls and close calls. We expect the best from our ship, so why not customize it with the best? You can argue cargo capacity and weapon payload until the end of days, but if you don't have the juice to fire it or the propulsion to move it, it's pretty pointless debate. Your ship's power plant and engines are the heart and legs of your ship. We get it. We do. Draw, efficiency, heat signatures. Often it feels like you have a handful of advanced degrees to understand what a single power plant or thruster can do. Add all the manufacturers and models, and it's a daunting prospect to customize the ship that gets your job done. Come on down to Omega Pro, where our trusted sales associates will be happy to talk to you about your ship's specific needs, as well as your personal needs, to help you navigate through treacherous waters of ship customization. Check out the latest thrusters from Dragon Stellar's new STC line, featuring a variety of propulsion output levels, perfect for any price tag. Omega Pro is proud to announce that they will be carrying thrusters for Hammer Propulsion's HE, HL, and HM lines. Stock will be limited, so make sure to contact your sales associate before coming down. That's all we know. It's just like we have an advertisement for them, but we know that they're like a franchise. So. Also, a world-setting thing with people living in an average way above 100 years. I'd say the average citizen definitely lives above 100 years. And the citizens are the only ones who vote. So I think the politics could get interesting if they lean into it a little bit more. I think they will lean into it, especially with the Earth-Terra Civil War. That's the main focus of the 1.0 storyline. But, they have to get to that point. Remember, citizen does not mean everyone. Yes, citizenship is earned and given in the UEE. Just because you serve the UEE military does not even guarantee you citizenship. You still have to go before a citizenship board, and the board has to determine if you have earned the right to be a citizen. Service does not guarantee citizenship in the UEE. You have to go above and beyond your duty in order to get citizenship. If that sounds like it's ripe for abuse, it is. The UEE and the Star Citizen universe in general is not a utopia. It is very much a sort of, it's a decaying empire. The UEE is falling apart at the seams. It is modeled after the fall of Rome. So, yeah. But who decides? Xenothreat? Each individual citizenship council decides, and each council is different. There's not like one panel that exists for everyone. There are many different panels that are made up of many different people. And I'm sure they have some sort of guidelines they use, but it's up to the councils themselves to determine if somebody is worthy of citizenship or not. CR looked at Bob Heinlein and thought he wasn't exclusionary enough. I think it's more that CR looked at Robert Heinlein and wanted to, or Dave Haddock and CR looked at Robert Heinlein and wanted to do some sort of commentary on it, but also they're pulling heavily from Roman history for a lot of the citizenship idea. The original concept of citizenship being earned is not a concept that is from Starship Troopers. It's from Rome. And it was borrowed, they sort of borrowed the language of Starship Troopers, the movie, and to a lesser degree the book, as part of that process. Didn't Rome famously offer citizenship for service, but it wasn't guaranteed. Just because you served in the military didn't mean you get some citizenship. It was decided if you would be granted citizenship or not if you weren't a citizen. But it was expected, especially early in Rome's history, that if you wanted to serve in politics, you had to serve in the military so you could prove that you were worthy of joining politics so you can get citizenship. But Roman citizenship was not guaranteed simply because of service. It was effectively guaranteed. It was, in practice, basically guaranteed. But famously, they didn't allow a Germanic Roman general to become an emperor, even though he was the hero of of Rome, having defeated many Germanic and non-Germanic peoples as a general, and became very popular amongst the troops. I forgot his name. It wasn't Vercingetorix. That's a different one. It was. I remember he famously was snubbed for being emperor, and so as a result, he turned his men on Rome and decided to sack Rome as a response to that. Roman history is not my major, so it was not my major. So it's just mostly me remembering from interesting stories. Germanicus, probably. No, he was actually Roman. Maybe it was Arminius. All right, y'all, we're going to wrap up this. It's kind of chat sort of dying down. Thank you for joining us here on this lore stream. Hopefully you enjoyed this. It's very interesting and very exciting to see CIG adding more lore to the game, which is good. And I want to see this going forward, especially with more characters like Wicklow. I am working on a Banu video, so a Banu the history of the Banu. Not really history of the Banu, but like who the Banu are, their culture, the like what a Suli is, famous Banu, how they function, so you can get a primer for an idea of who the Banu are, what they believe in, how they function, and their sort of perspective on the universe. That'll be out in the next couple of days. It should be out probably by Wednesday for those of you who are Patreons or members on YouTube. I'm hoping to get at least 2 videos done this week because it's my spring break, so I have some more time. And if I am able to do that, then you'll definitely see more content out on the Patreon side, which will not be released to YouTube until like a little bit later. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. And as always, let me know your thoughts down below, any of your comments, questions, all that kind of stuff. And like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black.